Okay. Sup, folks? I am here. Yes, I am here. I'm here editing, and I wanted to do like a quick little intro to sort of preface my video today because listen, I know it's been a while. Okay, it's been well over 4 weeks. I know. I know I haven't posted in a while, and I'm, trying to figure out work-life balance right now because at my job, I am a journalist for my career. It's been very hectic this month, and trying to, work a full day and then have time to edit and yada 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 woot woot. It's just very like a lot, and so obviously like I have to work, so I've been focusing on that, but I'm getting back into my groove. I'm getting back into it, as well as like just making sure I'm okay with like what consistency looks like for me, because I'm neurodivergent, so it's like I have to do things a certain way so that way I don't get as burnt out, or I just I don't give up, or you know what I mean, like I have to do it a certain way because I will get very discouraged. Like I have to do it a certain way. So I'm happy to be here, folks. I want to show y'all these nails. Look at them. Focus, focus. That's my nails. And so, yeah, I really hope y'all enjoyed today's video. And if you hear me reference any like dates, times, yada yada, just know we are not there anymore. Okay? So think about this as if, you feel me? Anyway, y'all get what I'm saying. But yeah, I hope y'all enjoy the video. Make sure to subscribe. And yeah, let's get on into it. Sup, folks? Welcome back to my channel. If you don't know who I am G the journalist, and this is my YouTube channel, obviously. Today I want to welcome y'all back to another episode of the G Spot. Anyway, we are here with episode 4, counted 4 of the G Spot, and I gotta shout out the folks that watch and subscribe, because my last video, episode 3, got over 100 views organically. So I was really, really proud of myself for, seeing that and see how people fuck with the content. So I'm back with another episode, y'all. So keep pushing because I want to be a full-time YouTuber, if y'all didn't know. But welcome back to episode 4, and I hope y'all ready for the ride. So to jump right on into it, make sure y'all follow me on Twitter at babyfollowedbyg, because I told y'all I'm not on Instagram right now. But make sure y'all follow me on Twitter so y'all can keep up with my intrusive thoughts and different things like that. And also maybe like updates and stuff when I do have like uploads that I'm planning to do, or whatever the case may be. I may post that on Twitter as well, so you can kind of keep up with your girl. But yeah, welcome back. Episode 4, we're here again. Shout out to the folks that watch. Yeah, make sure y'all follow me on Twitter. And let's just go ahead and jump right on up into it. You know what I mean? So I want to start with some life updates, as I usually do when I open up my episodes. So pretty much life over the last 2 weeks or so since my last video has been okay. I have therapy every week. I talk to my nurse practitioner maybe once a month. And so right now things are okay. Like I've been working on how, I just go about my everyday, how I process things, how I look at where I've been and where I'm going. That has changed a lot. And especially with like me diving more into like my focus around YouTube and trying to, build that platform, or this platform. And then also recently I had a conversation with my therapist talking about kind of how I alluded to in my previous episode, the idea, or, placing myself along the neurodivergent sort of spectrum. Me and my therapist did talk about that. We did like come to the conclusion that yeah, I'm neurodivergent, like at least from like a professional standpoint. Shawty, confirmed it, because I knew certain things, like I said before. I knew certain things, however, when it came down to like a confirmation or knowing exactly what I'm dealing with, I hadn't got that yet. And so I talked to my therapist like last week about it, and Shawty was like, yeah, you probably are. You probably are. And I was like, okay, girl, thank you for the professional advice. But shout out to my therapist for that. But yeah, sort of moving along in that. But also I want to sort of talk about how I told y'all like I'm on medicine now for like my moods and stuff. And so this particular medicine that I'm on, I had like a lot of questions about it, and I was asking my nurse practitioner about it. And I was like, yeah, when I did my research on this particular medicine, that bit said, it's used to treat bipolar disorder. And I was like, hey, shawty, do I got that? And she was like, nah, like that's not what's going on here. But she did diagnose me with major depressive disorder, which is real because that, it's sort of like a recurrent thing, because I originally got diagnosed with that in 2019 before I moved to Atlanta, and I was going through like a really, really depressive, dark situation right before the pandemic, and then that just followed into the pandemic. And so I was just like dealing with a number of things then, like back in NC. And now that I'm in ATL, I'm sort of like rectifying it all. And so whenever she said her diagnosis was MDD, I was like, okay, makes sense, like recurrent, especially based off like how I've been feeling over the past few months, makes sense, you know. But yeah, your girl do not have a bipolar disorder, but I was really looking into it. I'm like, child, somebody please tell me what's going on. Tell me something good, because that was not good. But yeah, so, the meds, they doing what they do. Like, honestly, I find myself zoning out a lot. Like, my brain is on go, but it's not on go to the point where it's like I have this constant anxiety, riddled throughout my body. And so my mind kind of just be blank sometimes, and my ass would be, sitting somewhere. I could be right here in this chair, and my ass would be staring off in the motherfucking space. Like, girl, where is you at? And I'm just like, okay. And I kind of noticed that as far as like after I started taking this medicine or whatever. And yeah, that was one of the sort of main things I noticed, as well as like, yeah, the medicine does what it needs to do, because it's sort of like, not say turns off all the like transmissions or like signals to your brain, but it helps with limiting how fast, or like, the constant cycle of it all. It slows that down a little bit so you can sort of, okay, what's going on? Okay. And so that's been really helpful for me to sort of process my emotions. But regardless of what emotion I'm processing, that bitch is gonna be big. You know what I mean? Because I am a sensitive person, regardless if I was on these meds or not. Cause there was some moments as I was taking my meds where it's like, okay, like this is a lot. And like that's just me and who I am as a person. I just feel a lot. And so I'm noticing that more, and I'm leaning into that more, because yeah, like this is me. This is real. This is me. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be now. Gonna let the light shine on me. Yeah. Demi Lovato, for sure. So I've been really just leaning into that, leaning into, how my brain works, leaning into dropping the mask. Like that has been really, really like my main focus over 2025 so far, as well as like my whole spiel on like not dating anymore and staying away from that, because these men ain't shit. Okay? Anyway, I'm just saying, Anyway, to move forward, y'all, I want to get into, my little segments where I talk about my interests, you know what I'm saying? And again, this goes into that whole neurodivergent situation, because y'all, like, I still have not deviated from the stuff I told y'all before, like anime, horror, all that type of stuff. Still on it. Still on it. And I'm just like, I'm not like hoping I get off of it, but it's just like for me to notice how deep this shit is getting. I'm just like, okay, girl, you ain't moved. But yeah, so my anime obsession is growing and growing. Like I showed y'all my watch list last time. It gets, it just keeps getting longer and longer. But I'm working on knocking off, a number of anime off of that list. And so I just been, deep diving as well as like just watching whatever sort of comes up outside of my watch list, and then I'll watch it and add it. And so it's a win-win situation. But other than that, like I also sort of dove into like all my plushie hyperfixations as well. Like I'm also into plushie. So if y'all can see back there, I have like a plushie shelf situation. And so I also got a new plushie right here. I haven't named this one, but it's a weighted plushie, if y'all can hear that. But it's like a weighted plushie and it's a dinosaur. And I got it from good old Walmart. This ain't no fucking sponsorship. But I got it from Walmart for $12. You know what I'm saying? And I'll have it right here on my lap when I'm working or when I go to sleep. I'll like lay it on my chest because it does help with like that anxiety and stuff like that. So I see why people be buying like the weighted situations, like the blankets, plushies. I didn't even know they had weighted plushies. So I went to Walmart that day, to be honest. But yeah, so I got one. I also have, filled up my plushie shelf, and I'll put something on the screen so y'all can see it a little bit more close up. But yeah, I've been really like every time I go to the store, I buy a plushie. The only time I haven't done it was maybe today. That was the only time because I was on a mission today. Even though I bought shit I didn't need. But yeah, I always kind of buy plushies when I go places. And then also, just a quick book update for y'all before I really get into the anime talk as well as like some other stuff that I wanted to highlight. As y'all know, obviously it's Black History Month, proud of being black, right on, and so pretty much this month I'm going to read a Black history book, or I'm in the process of reading a Black history book. It's not a book about Black history, but it's like a book that's about Black historical situations by a Black author. Yeah. And so I got it right here for you. Boom. This is the Underground Railroad. Some of y'all may know about it because it also has a series on Prime Video. I have not seen the series. I just got the book. And so this book is pretty much like historical fiction around the Underground Railroad. If y'all know about that, Harriet Tubman, you know what I mean? Getting them slaves up out of there. But this particular book is by Colson Whitehead. He's the winner of the Pulitzer Prize. And so this is his novel. And I'm really, getting into it. So far, it's been pretty on par with historical fiction. Pretty on par. And I like reading it and thinking about these types of stories because obviously like I could do more history, or I could do more research into my history about like, the Underground Railroad or different things during like the Civil Rights era, the Reconstruction era. You know what I mean? Like I could learn a lot more, and I'm trying to do that, trying to make my way into it. And so maybe this could be like an intro into more historical fiction or things surrounded by Black culture that I could read about. So yeah, book update, folks. Black history. Right on. And so moving forward, let's get into this anime. Let's get into it. So I recently watched 3 shows and finished them completely. And I want to put y'all on real quick. So again, like before I get deep into it, if y'all got anime recs, go drop them in the comments so I can get right, add it to the watch list. But anyway, let's get into what I've been watching. So recently, I just finished watching this one anime that I saw on Netflix, but I ended up watching it on Crunchyroll. It's called Cells at Work. Pretty much like it's based around, the personification of the cells in your body. So like blood cells, white blood cells, that type of thing. It shows you the inside of the body. So the setting is a human body. That's the best way I can put it. Picture a human body and then we on the inside. So that's where we at. And so pretty much like the plot of this is to show you how your inner body functions and like what happens when various diseases or germs get into your body. Like for instance, if you get the flu, it show you how they, fight the flu or whatever when you get up in there, you know what I'm saying? And so I want to tell y'all about the episodes that I really like. And so the episodes that I really liked, there was one called Hemorrhagic Shock. So hemorrhagic shock is pretty much like, boom, say for instance you get like stabbed or some shit, you know what I mean? Motherfucker come in, and it like really gets you. You start bleeding out profusely. And so that motherfucker showed that in the damn show, right? He bleeding out. Get down to the last two blood cells. Mind you, one of the blood cells is like one of the main characters in the whole thing, right? And so it pretty much show you what happens when hemorrhagic shock is going on inside the body, pretty much. You know what I mean? So this motherfucker, like, I don't know what happened to the point where they had that going on, but they lost all their blood pretty much. And so when you lose all your blood, it shows that the red blood cells, if there aren't enough, they can't get oxygen to the rest of the body, specifically like the heart and the brain. So if you don't got that oxygen going on, you're gonna be out like a light. You hear me? Like you need that blood. So pretty much when they showed like it was getting down to the wire and them motherfuckers was like, fuck, we ain't gonna make it. We ain't gonna make it. Here comes the blood transfusion. So you know how you might donate blood? Yeah, that blood in that bag, they brought that into this body. And what got me was, mind you, like these cells in the body, they don't necessarily have a particular like accent or dialect or anything like that to make them sort of stand out, if that makes sense. But when they did the blood transfusion, all of the blood cells were southern. Like they had some, I want to say maybe like a Kentucky or Tennessee accent, because it wasn't like North Carolina or Atlanta, and it definitely won't no Florida accent. And it wasn't as drawn out as a Texas accent. So it was like they got to be from like that Kentucky, Tennessee, you know what I'm talking about? Like over there type vibe. And so I was like, okay, that's kind of funny, because it's like these people was kind of uncultured. Now we got some culture in this bitch. And so it was kind of funny to me to see that. But another episode I want to tell y'all about it was called Cytokines. Now, cytokines, it sounds like a very scientific word for like these lactic acid or good bacteria that's in your body. So it pretty much was an episode about the bacteria that's in your body, but it helps you compared to like the foreign bacteria that comes in to harm you. And so that was kind of cool. Pretty much in this particular episode, the lactic acid was like little like squishy babies. Like they weren't babies, but it was like they looked like candy corn but of different colors, and it was like a little baby. And so pretty much there was like different areas of the body where they were like fighting these like things that need to be broken down, whether it was bacteria or large portions of food, you know what I mean? Like they break down certain shit. And so pretty much give y'all a little, a little science. Pretty much that good bacteria that I'm talking about, it gets rid of certain waste in your body. So they're like small proteins that are crucial in like controlling the growth as well as the activity of other immune system cells and blood cells. So they sort of help y'all out when it comes to like, the blood and the way our body fights off certain things. So they help in that process. And I really like that episode because I didn't know all that. Like, granted, I took anatomy and physiology in high school and in college. Mind you, I don't remember none of that shit. I know some stuff, you know what I mean? Like, okay, I know where the parts at, but the real like breakdown of like how these cells and bacteria work in your body, that was new. That was new. I had to learn something. But it also teaches you like the line of defense when it comes to how, or the order of how your body fights shit off. And it also depends on what it is. So the way your body fights off like the flu may not be the way your body fights off something more serious. You know what I mean? It just depends on what's going on. So sort of like the line of defense is like, obviously white blood cells are first to fight off, or first on the scene. And then there's like macrophages that they shown. Pretty much macrophages like kill certain bacteria that might be a little bit stronger than what white blood cells can handle, and they also clean up the scene. And then depending on if there's a certain level of seriousness to the bacteria or disease, that's where your B cells and T cells come in, and they sort of get you right. You know what I mean? They get you right. So it really sort of breaks down how your body functions. And so moving on to the next anime that I watched, which is pretty much like a sequel or another part of the collection, is Cells at Work Code Black. Now, as you can probably tell by the name, Code Black is like, okay, bitch, like what the fuck shit going down. And so this anime follows pretty much same sort of, premise, like personification of cells in your body. However, it's sort of flip flop. Like in the main or regular cells at work, the main characters is a female red blood cell as well as a male white blood cell, and they like, you know, they sort of like the two main characters. But in this one, there was a male red blood cell and a female white blood cell. And so kind of switch roles, and this particular show takes on a more serious tone because the body that they are helping, or you know, the body that we're inside is a more unhealthy body. So somebody that, you know, was alcoholic, smoked a lot of cigarettes, you know, really won't, you know, giving a fuck about their body pretty much. And so because of the more serious tone, it sort of shows you more serious or explicit things that happen in the body and how that sort of works or functions, this, that, and the third. And so granted, now Code Black, there is a little explicit nature to it. And so one of the episodes that I found intriguing was the episode about a man like getting an erection. And so it pretty much shows you what happens when a man gets hard. And so granted, like, I don't care if a man gets hard, but I found it interesting about how it works because obviously I'm a woman. So I don't necessarily know how all that works. So pretty much they showed you like pretty much the blood comes in, you know, when you get aroused, the blood comes in and it like goes up the erectile tissue. So it like enters the erectile tissue and then eventually it sort of flows to the balls. So it goes up and then flow all the way back to the balls. And so that sort of like is how the erection is. Like the blood comes in and it flows, so it's like boom. And then that's how you get the phallus or erect penis. And so once that happened, right, in this particular episode, so he got hard, but then it shows you erectile dysfunction. So he got hard and then the shit went back soft. And then he took some Viagra and it showed like how the Viagra entered the body, and that motherfucker went back hard again. And so pretty much like that's one of the episodes that was kind of cool or whatever. And then with this series, it also shows you again the impact of that long-term smoking and drinking and how that can impact like or show up as high blood pressure, high cholesterol, just real unhealthy. Also, another thing I found interesting about Code Black was it also looked into how STDs, like that type of bacteria, comes in and infiltrates and how the body fights it off. And so one particular episode was gonorrhea. Gonorrhea is a treatable STD, but it was just showing you how it comes in and proliferates and how that goes on. And so that was kind of cool. Moving forward, it also sort of painted a picture of something like very, very serious, like almost dying. And it was like cardiac arrest, right? So what happened was there was like a blood clot in the heart. So like your ventricles and all that in your heart system, there was a clot in there. So the blood clotted together, and so you see like a bunch of like little niggas in a circle. And so it's like the blood got caught in like the ventricle or whatever. So obviously that stops the circulation to flow. So pretty much they went to a hospital. This person had a heart attack. They went to the hospital and the blood, you know, blood cells was like, what the fuck going on? And mind you, this clot is there. So whenever the body gets to a hospital, what they do is for the clot to sort of, you know, get out the way, they put in like this stent thing, like this stent situation. So this the clot, this the stent. And like they blow up a balloon inside the stent so the blood can like, you see what I'm saying? So the blood can like get up out of there, and then they pop the balloon and then the stent stays so that way it can stay open. And that was kind of cool because I'm like, damn, they doing all that in this nigga chest? All right. So boom, boom, and then boom. So that was kind of cool to see how that was broken down and see like what happens whenever you have, according to my research, this was a pulmonary embolism. Pretty much like when they got a clot that got stuck, pulmonary embolism. That's the correct term. I'm putting y'all on to some science. Anyway, I really like both of those shows, and I definitely would recommend, you know, students or folks that are learning about the body or just interested in things around the body. I definitely recommend learning it in this more creative or fun way. But it is a little explicit when you get to Code Black. I'm just saying. Okay. But yeah, I would recommend this, and I think to rate them, I would probably give them, like, I would get sales at work, the regular joint, I would probably give it like a 8.6. Yeah, that feels good. 8.6. And then Code Black, I'll probably give it a I'll probably give it a 9. I'll probably give it a 9 because I like the more serious tone and like what happens when the body isn't healthy, because it kind of woke me up. I'm like, hold on, let me drink some more water or something. But yeah, let's get into the next show that I watched. So another anime that I finished, it was on Max. Again, this ain't no sponsorship or nothing like that. Just letting y'all know what platforms I watch it on. Anyway, this other anime that I watched on Max was called Uzumaki. Now, if you know about Uzumaki now, okay, like this was right up my alley, like, okay. But yeah, pretty much Uzumaki, the premise of the show is like this kind of small remote town that nobody really, know about, this, that, and the third. People know about it, but they don't know about it. It's like kind of remote. And so the premise of this show is like these folks in this particular town, they have to deal with a curse of like spirals, right? So whenever this particular time in the city comes about, like a certain season or some shit like that, they have the curse falls upon the city. And it's, again, a curse around spirals, like Saw, but spirals. And so it was kind of intriguing to see how they sort of told this story, right? And this fits into that horror / macabre body horror situation. Like, this show got a lot of body horror, in my opinion. But yeah, there's 4 episodes, about 30 minutes, kind of limited series. I don't know if they're gonna come back with another season or not, but pretty much our main character in this, her name is Kyrie, and she has a boyfriend and friends like that get sort of taken over by the curse. And so Kyrie is retelling, she's like the narrator, she's retelling what happened. And so one of the episodes that really like caught my attention was like, obviously they're all good, however, like what happens is if people pretty much like stare at the spirals, or sort of, it's like this allure, you know what I mean? Like there's like this allure. Oh, it kind of remind me of The Lighthouse that I told y'all about in the last video. It kind of remind me of that. Like there's this allure to the spirals. And now that I think about it, there was also a lighthouse in there in the show. Like the name of the movie was The Lighthouse, but there was a lighthouse in the show as well. Don't know if there's some inspiration there or not, but I see the lines. I see it. But anyway, pretty much one of the episodes that really sort of stuck out to me was the episode, it was like episode 2, I think. It was when like the spirals was taking over people's like bodies. In the first episode, it showed how the body can physically transform into a spiral, like break all the bones in your body to sort of create this spiral situation. So that was kind of cool to see. And then also the next episode was kind of like, okay, now we getting somewhere. But pretty much it sort of infiltrated, the folks that got taken over by the curse, it infiltrated their body. So it would start, they would have a spiral on their back that would grow, and they would turn into snail people, y'all. Snail people. And I was like, oh my God, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like snail people, okay. And so pretty much like the spiral on their back would turn into a snail shell that got like a spiral. I know you've seen SpongeBob and they got that damn spiral on Gary's shell. That's pretty much what was happening, but it was people. And so they turned into snail people and all that. And it started out with like one person, and then, over time, more people got turned into snail folks. And that was kind of interesting because I was like, ugh. But at the same time, I was into it, like cringe, but I'm into it. You know what I mean? Like they snail people. Mind you, though, if you've seen the show, they start eating them motherfuckers because like it gets worse and they don't have no food. You know what I mean? They don't have shit. And it started to turn into like this dystopian post-apocalyptic situation. And so another thing that stood out to me in the series was this other episode that like alluded to a metaphor around mosquitoes. So in the show, they pretty much said like pregnant mosquitoes, or female mosquitoes that are pregnant, they like suck more blood or need more blood or some shit like that. Mind you, our main character, Kyrie, she ends up in this hospital whenever she almost got like taken over by the spirals. And so she ended up in this hospital where it's a bunch of pregnant women, including her cousin was pregnant, and they share, they had to share a room. So Kyrie, obviously like the mosquitoes is coming from nowhere. Like think about like the plague with this spiral shit, because shit was just happening, like people in the snail people turning into spirals, this like mosquitoes. If like if you think about biblical references, it's sort of like the plague, you know what I mean, as well as like back in like history, the plague, the black plague and shit. So think about it in this sense, but spirals, okay? And so pretty much like these pregnant women started acting like mosquitoes. That's why it's like a metaphor, because when they bring it up, you don't know why they bring it up, kinda. It's just a matter of why the fuck all these mosquitoes around, you know? So when they finally like, put two and two together, the women that were pregnant were acting like mosquitoes, and they was like sucking people body dry of the blood. And I was just like, see, that's why they was talking about them damn mosquitoes. That's why they would talk about it. Overall, I really like the series. I really like this particular anime because of that horror aspect. Like, I wasn't scared, obviously, but it's just like a lot of the allure, or what's the word? A lot of the body horror is what got me, because I'm like, okay. I forgot the name of the dude that made it, but okay. But to sort of transition from here, now that we're talking about horror, I want to pose a question to y'all. Are horror movies always political? Now, slow down before you answer, because I want you to think. Are horror movies always political? Now, I know you're wondering, gee, why the fuck are you asking that? Because when it comes to horror movies, sometimes it goes deeper than just watching them. Okay, I took a class in college on horror movies, and it broke down the tropes. It broke down how, camera angles are used, how music is used, and then how different things are like subliminals, or that underlying message, that ideological message that's in these films. And so what brings me to that today? What brings me to that today is recently on Twitter, there's been discourse around the Terrifier franchise. Now, if you know about Terrifier, you know very much, horror, gore, practical effects situation, right? Like, it's real. To me, it's good as fuck. Like, I love the Terrifier franchise. When I came across it, I was like, where the fuck has this shit been? Right? And so I want to talk about whether or not horror movies are always political, because there was discourse around this when the director of Terrifier, here, let me bring up my receipts. Let me bring up my receipts for you. I got my receipts right here for you. Hold on. Y'all see that, right? But yeah, I got my receipts here. So pretty much what happened was the director of the Terrifier series, he pretty much, if y'all don't know who he is, his name is Damien Leone. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But Damien Leone, he pretty much put out a post talking about how the Terrifier series isn't necessarily political. He just sort of wanted to make slasher films, this, that, and the third. And so I'm going to say what he said and quote it. So, to quote Damien Leone, he said, Terrifier is not in any way, shape, or form a political franchise. I did not get into filmmaking to become a politician or promote any political agendas or ideology, especially through a killer clown movie. Now, this is what he said. This is what he said now. I ain't saying it. This is what he said. When he said that, it caused a lot of thought-provoking pieces, on Twitter. Damien pretty much said like, hey, as long as you a good person, I really don't care about what you, not say he don't care, but I really don't mind what you believe in. I really don't, like, it doesn't bother me, pretty much. That's what he's saying. So he took more of a neutral stance. So it's kind of layered. People didn't like what he had to say about Terrifier not being political, as well as him sort of taking this more neutral stance. And so that brings me back, to my question of whether or not horror movies are always political. And so let's define political as far as horror goes. And so if you think about it, horror pushes the boundaries of social constructs, and sometimes it calls out injustice of those various groups, as was mentioned here. So think about the LGBTQIA plus community, or women, or black folks, those marginalized groups. It sort of calls out that injustice. And if you also think about horror movies, it sort of reflects the time or society at the time. So it's like, okay, so if you think about like movies back in the day, like one movie that's coming to my head right now is The Living Dead, Night of the Living Dead, where pretty much there was like a black main character that spoke to sort of like that trope around the black people dying first, as well as like the social times. I believe that movie came out in the late 70s, early 80s. And so to have a black male character in a horror movie at the forefront was not, you know what I mean? There was like change going on. And I think that's what was speaking to that in that particular movie, right? And so to move forward, if you think about it, some films, or at least all films, are like inherently political because they reflect or respond to repressed fears. Now, what am I talking about? If you know who Robin Wood is, Robin Wood is a film critic and educator, pretty much, that did this a scholarly work called The American Nightmare in 1979, where he pretty much talked about the return of the repressed. So that means like those monsters, villains, or threats that symbolize mainstream society's suppression of stuff. So if you think sexuality, class, race, you know what I mean? It's sort of that. So that other, if you will, the return of the repressed, so we can have that going, that term going. But Robin Wood pretty much was saying in that piece that horror reveals this ideological struggle within a culture, even if that's not what the intent was. So say the director had a specific intent, right? Even if that's not the intent, horror reveals that underlying message regardless of what you was trying to do. You know what I mean? And so to bring that back, again, we're talking about this other, right? People that are excluded from society, or concepts that are excluded from society. And so to continue on what Robin Wood had to say, think about conservation of views and ideology when it comes to the mainstream. So like think about the final girl trope, being pure, people that don't engage in certain behaviors, drinking, drugs, that type of thing, right? This idea of, conserving certain views that are more so, on a certain spectrum, if you will. So that final girl trope being sort of at the forefront. And then if you think about it, more so along the lines of like radical horror challenges the status quo. So Robin Wood was sort of pointing that out in his piece. Pretty much like radical horror critiques things like capitalism, class, economic decline. Like it really puts those things at the forefront, again, regardless of what's going on. And one example that comes up is what's the movie? Jordan Peele's Get Out. And it sort of forces audiences to confront, the systems that causes repression to begin with. And if you think about Get Out, it sort of hits you in the face with how racism, specifically systemic racism, sort of shows up among white liberals in these more progressive white spaces. Because if you think back to that movie, they were acting as if, oh, we cool with the black people. I voted for Obama. You know what I'm saying? Like sort of like these microaggressions that was building on top of each other. And that kind of shows you, even in the most liberal, spaces where we're supposed to be allies, there's still an underlying thing happening here. And I think Get Out portrays that very well. You know what I mean? It calls out systemic racism. It sort of reverses those traditional tropes of like the white final girl. In this particular movie we have, and I feel like I alluded to this in the previous video, where I was curious about seeing more black final girls. But in Get Out, it sort of reverses that trope where it's a final black man. Something that is, rare depending on the movies or, director you watching. But to sort of like move forward, I was curious about, as I was doing my research into this, on whether or not these movies can be always political or not. So moving back to the Terrifier series and the discourse around that, if you think about Terrifier really, again, pays homage to that gore, more practical effect body horror, and that's what I'm here for. And so again, the director Damien Leone pretty much focused on that pure slasher horror, and he's not necessarily focusing, like his intent is not deep messages. So that's very clear. But again, if we go back to Robin Wood and what he had to say, it really don't matter what your intent is. There's going to be something there. Like films are going to be inherently political based off that definition that Robin Wood had. And so if you think about, the implications or anything like that around Terrifier, there is this idea that even though the director didn't intend for a deep message, with Terrifier being the franchise that it is, it kind of already goes against a certain type of horror, which is like elevated horror. So if you think about elevated horror, it goes into like this art horror. It's like a subgenre. It focuses on like that psychological, more like, you know what I'm saying? It got to make you think, you know, okay, like you got to put it together compared to like Terrifier. It's very much straightforward, like kill, kill, kill. It's very much like, okay, like I see what the message is, and it's obviously no real message, like at least based off like the comparison of the two, like, you know what I mean? And so the implication here is like, well, if the franchise, you know, isn't political or anything like that, how come it sort of rejects that elevated horror, you know what I mean? Trope or subgenre. Like Terrifier rejects that. It's like this, you know, very much practical, very much slasher, very much, you see what I'm saying? Like there's an implication there, you know what I mean? But at the same time, if we move forward and think about it, Art the Clown, he's not like, you know, other slashers. He's just pure chaos. And obviously there's no real motive other than like, you know, having fun. It seems like he just be, you know, having a time. Granted, he has like those moments of like almost get, or not even almost getting his ass whooped, getting his ass whooped. But I think like, at least like based on the commentary and the research I've been doing, there's like this more nihilistic approach to the horror. You know what I mean? Like violence that lacks explanations, a lack of social commentary. Terrifier kind of speaks to that. Like he's just killing for no real reason, and it lacks explanation. You know what I mean? And so moving back to certain things around sort of like that implication, I'm curious about like, does horror need to have an explicit message, or can chaos itself be a reflection of societal fears? And so I think that's one of the implications when we talk about this. I was digging because I want to really talk about this, because me personally, I genuinely believe, like, again, I agree with Robin Wood when he's like, all films are sort of inherently political, and I think horror movies shine a light on that the most. Again, regardless of what, you know, Damien Leone was trying to do. Like, obviously it's about interpretation, right? Like people are going to watch your film, and granted you had a certain idea or certain intent for that film, but people are always going to translate that differently because we are not the same. And so when were saying stuff on Twitter, I'm like, you know what I mean? Like I might need to go back and do some research and think about certain things. Like when I took that class, pretty much Damien Leone is saying like, hey, the Terrifier series is not political, but at the end of the day, it is political if we think about elevated horror and how it rejects that, you know, higher form or art subgenre of horror, as well as like, for instance, like I said, like, does horror need to have that explicit message in order to sort of be political, or can that chaos be what's, you know, the message? Can that chaos be the message? Pretty much. I did read the tweet. I did read like how people thought about it, and a lot of people agree with me. Like regardless of what you were doing, there's always going to be some level of message, some level of political stance or reflection of society, regardless of like the movie. But horror specifically, like that genre or this genre that we're talking about, is gonna, you know, always have something. It's always gonna, you know, shed a light on something. There's always gonna be something there. To sort of repose that question, are horror movies always political? My answer, yes. My answer, yes. Even if that's not the intent of the movie, yes. Horror movies are always political, whether it just rejects a certain subgenre or a genre of horror, or it just shows you, as you see here with the franchise of Terrifier, pure chaos can be a stance. You know what I mean? Can be somewhat of a view in this particular atmosphere. To round it out, films, you know, horror films are political in essence. It's not even about, you know, intent or making a statement. Sometimes it's just about how, again, I think it's all about interpretation too. But I think overall, in essence, they are political, and, you know, they reflect fears and attitudes of the time. And, you know, that was something I found interesting, and I had to really do some research, y'all. Like I done read scholarly articles on this. Look, I took my time. That's why it took a while for my video to come out, because I'm like, I don't want to sound crazy. But yeah, horror films, political, check. Anime, good, check. Plushies, good, check. But yeah, to sort of just round out and wrap up this video, I've watched a lot of anime and it's been pretty good. And horror movies are making me think. Such a genius I am, putting those 2 degrees to work. Okay. I really like looking up certain things and being able to talk about it. And, at the beginning of this video, I gave y'all an update where I was mentally, as well as like, my updates with these interests that I have. And I think overall, I'm leaning more into like, what I'm, my niche, what I'm into and what I like to talk about. And today was sort of an experiment with a more research based conversation. And I'm curious about what y'all think. Like, have y'all seen what happened with the Terrifier situation and that whole political back and forth and how different people were saying things? What are y'all thoughts? Do y'all believe horror movies are always political? Me personally, there's always something there, regardless of, again, what Robin Wood said, regardless of your intent as a director, there's going to be something there regardless, just based on the times. You feel me? And then us being the type of society that we are, I feel like we're always looking for that deeper meaning. Like, we don't just watch movies. At least some of us don't just watch movies. Like, we're watching for a bigger reason. And I know, like, I watch for like the technicalities of horror because I told you I took a class. Like, okay, that's how it. Okay, yeah, okay, I see how it. Yeah, like that's what I'm looking for, as well as like the pure horror aspect. Like when I went to see Terrifier, I was like, yes, please cut her in half. Like, yeah, that was good to me. But yeah, overall, y'all, like, I'm taking a new sort of approach, trying some different things out. So let me know how y'all feeling. Do I sound smart? Do I sound like I got my smart cap on? Let me know. Answer the question as well. Are horror movies always political? I want to know your thoughts. But yeah, thank y'all so much for tuning in and listening to me yap about different things that I like. And I hope y'all are enjoying the G Spot. You know what I'm saying? Show love, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at babyfollowedbyg. And yeah, we're going to keep this going. We'll be back with another episode when I'm feeling it. But yeah, make sure y'all follow me. Make sure y'all subscribe. Drop some comments. I would really love to hear y'all thoughts on this episode. So that way I know how to move forward with the things that I like as well as what you like. So yeah, check me out. Don't forget to subscribe. And keep on doing what you do. Let's keep going. Let's grow. Don't forget to fucking subscribe. Thank you.